KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. Greetings, Petaluma.
Greetings, Petaluma. Oh, all right. Wait, let me take my mask off.
There we go.
Good God.
Oh, I'm good, but not a God.
Where's our theme music? Quick fade.
All right.
Another technical glitch here. Our theme music isn't playing.
Yeah, it seems like last time we had a technical glitch, I was here. But when I'm not here, you do fine.
It went smoothly. But you know what? I think this is just a hint that it's time to change our music.
We will do that. I will have it in for next week.
Jim Thomas over there, your co-host.
And Matt McGuire over there, your co-host.
Two Mooks and a mic.
We're
going to assign Jim the technical task of bringing up some new music for next week.
And I'm the one who puts it all together for YouTube.
That's
so
right.
If you want to see some visuals, not much. It's just more like what's happening behind the scenes, sort of.
A little interesting.
Yeah, and maybe someday we'll go live. We'll actually have a camera.
So we are starting to now archive these shows on YouTube. So if you search for two Mooks and a mic on YouTube, you'll come up with several shows now.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Thanks to you.
Oh, Jim. Thanks to me. Oh, well, you're welcome. You're welcome. Enjoy it, everybody. And maybe someday we'll be in the Library of Congress, man.
That's right. Well, so, Jim, before we jump into the meat and potatoes here, you were on assignment
I was
last
on
week.
assignment. I was down south in
recap.
Palm Desert. I got an offer I couldn't refuse. I could stay at a Western resort and listen to their timeshare spiel. And stay there for a week for really cheap. So my wife and I went. It was fabulous.
Cool.
Really nice. But you know what, Matt? It is still the desert. Winds come up and there's sand. The mountains become somewhat obscure. There are walls everywhere and gated communities and golf courses and ponds and fountains. And my first question, we went on a little tour up into Joshua Tree. My first question was, what's the water table? What's happening with the water table?
Where's all this water coming from?
Yeah, exactly right. So they have an aquifer that's the biggest in the U.S., they say. And you think it extends all the way to Nevada.
Yeah, because that's under Las Vegas and such. There's It's a massive, couple 100 million year old aquifer, but it is being rapidly drained.
It's
and
true.
Scientists say it's likely to be run out in like 50 years.
That's the thing. So when they first were down there, the white people were down there and they started digging for water. It was artesian wells, so the water was shooting up out of the ground. But now they're not worried about it. They're building like crazy, unfortunately. But the nice thing is we went to where the San Andreas Fault is, and the tectonic plates are rubbing together. Palm trees, unique for that area, are growing up. The Washingtonia filifera.
That's right.
And
fan palm.
California fan palms. That's right. And water is flowing there, Matt. It's weird to see that in the desert.
Yeah.
So anyway, they think that the Joshua trees are going to be gone within the next 50 years, if that, because of lack of rain.
Yeah.
Global climate change.
Well, and on that note.
Wow. So I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. Well, welcome back, Jim.
Thank you, man.
Good report.
Thank you.
We'll have to send you out more often.
Yeah, right, okay. Oh, the bathtub is great in the Western resorts. Pillow top mattresses.
Plenty of water.
Yeah.
So, today we're meeting this afternoon on a very, very filthy, smoky day.
Oh, we're number one.
It's nasty. Yeah, world's worst air pollution, I think, or certainly in the country.
You see people walking around with N95 masks. That is the type you want, boys and girls. You don't want surgical masks. They don't filter out the particulate matter.
The microscopic, that microscopic matter can get so deep into your lungs. It's so small it can go right into your bloodstream.
Not cool.
And it's very, very, very bad
toxic.
for us.
Yeah,
so we've been wearing our mask, and it looks like it's going to be.
Here we go, back again.
No, it's and sadly, it doesn't look like the weather pattern is going to change for at least several more days.
Yeah, they're saying Wednesday wind and possibly rain, which would be fantastic. Help the fires and the firefighters.
That would be great. We've got that ridiculously resilient ridge, high pressure ridge off the coast again, as what was so prevalent during the drought, and it's recreating those horrible drought conditions.
And what happened? Why is that, Matt?
Well, global warming.
Yeah,
Jim,
exactly
basically.
Right. It's the whole wind pattern is changing.
Yeah.
By the way, your N95 masks are supposed to be changed after every 8 hours.
Yeah.
I just found that out. It's really depressing. or just don't breathe.
And let's say you can get them where at?
They're all sold out. I think local hardware store has them maybe by Monday. So there's a big run on them.
Guess I'm going to use mine for more than 8 hours.
I just turn it inside out.
Yeah, just like going camping in your undies.
Oh, okay, but you don't breathe through them, I hope.
Yeah, oh God,
so,
no.
What do we got
your
here?
mind, just where does that mind go?
My mind didn't go anywhere. I'm not in the gutter.
Well, listen, so, still riding high on the good results from the midterm elections.
You mean the blue trickle?
Well, yeah, that's turned out to truly be a big blue wave.
So cool.
Yeah. And so there's, highest voter turnout in 50 years.
Unbelievable.
The suburban
50 years.
50 years. The suburban vote was split basically 49 to 49%. That was one of those swing blocks, right?
Yeah.
But it turns out that suburban women voted for Democrats by 19 points.
They woke.
That's up from 4 points, difference in favor of Democrats 4 years ago.
Wow.
So, that's really been, of course, you wonder how big the turnout would be if there weren't all these concerted efforts by the Republicans to suppress liberal votes.
Yeah, well,
right?
which is what's happening in Georgia. But what was the main issue? Was it health care?
Well, so, it was really a referendum on Trump, and people were saying that, he hoisted himself by his own petard.
Oh, well, that's good. Maybe 2 petards.
Yeah, exactly. Meaning that
petard.
He things that was that backfired on him when he just kept spewing and fulminating against the invasion of those immigrants. Who haven't even arrived.
Right, haven't even arrived. The troops are down there. They're they're not going to be there with their family during Thanksgiving,
wasting hundreds of millions,
and twiddling their thumbs, like you said.
And of course,
barbed wire.
Trump stopped talking about that the day after the election.
Isn't that something? And so did Trump TV, Fox News.
That definitely spurred the Hispanic vote, which I believe was up by 174%.
That's astounding.
So how about that?
Viva Latina.
Yeah, right on. And so that had a difference, and that was very important.
Good. So Trump's fear mongering for against the Latino or people of color seemed to have backfired. It didn't work, which is really good.
Well, he was trying to motivate his reactionary, racist, and fearful base, which he did apparently, but it got everybody else to go, hey, you're out of control and you're a sick puppy.
Yeah,
and
this is not what America is like. We're changing that.
That's right. Yeah. So now you see things like Kristen Sinema won the Arizona Senate race,
which is pretty astounding.
Yeah,
right?
because Arizona has been red for a long time.
Yes, it has.
And the Democrats picked up so far 36 seats in the House.
Wow.
It could be as much as 39. They needed 23 to get a majority. So now
that is a wave.
They're going into the new term really strong.
Yes, and they have a laundry list of stuff they're going to do, which is good.
Exactly. Like, listen to this, folks. Some of the things to do. Well, restore voting rights and get rid of the obstacles, and try to
suppress
people like Brian
vote.
Kemp, who
Georgia,
the Secretary of State, who's running for governor, who very actively eliminated polling places in neighborhoods where it's mostly black or Hispanic.
That's right, or locked up machines so they couldn't be used.
Exactly. Tried to eliminate early voting, all that stuff. So the Democrats
what an asshat.
Democrats have voting rights, work on that, reducing the influence of money in politics.
Wow.
Fix the redistricting and gerrymandering that the Republicans have perpetrated. Where here's another thing. So now, what was it the Democrats took? Was it 7 governorships, 6 or 7?
I think so, yeah.
So that's huge because then they will be in charge of the redistricting.
Maybe they'll do it like California did, which having a non-political way of redistricting, which is really good. A couple of
states have passed laws to do non-political.
That's fantastic.
Let's see, Dems also, need to overturn Citizens United.
Yep.
Now, and there's a House Bill 1 to do that, and it won't pass, but this is putting the topics on the table. So in 2020, the Republicans can't just skate by on, the economy. Which, it was funny because they, you would think that, the economy's really strong and unemployment's down, blah, blah, blah. But that was not really an issue that they could talk about because everybody knows it was the billionaire boys tax giveaway at the end of last year. Right. And that's not trickling down. And in fact, in almost all cases, as predicted, the corporations are actually buying back their stock.
Right. So they're sitting on tons of cash. They're buying back their stocks,
which increases its value.
They're starting to hire a little bit, but not as much as the floodgates that were promised. Right? They said this tax cut's going to increase the economy.
Everybody's going to get big pay increases.
Right.
No, not. No. And the people on the low end of the pay scale haven't seen any benefits. Right? And here's an interesting side note, Jim.
Yeah.
So Bernie Sanders and is it Chris Coons have put forth a bill to say that I think it's Walmart must pay their workers $15 an hour before they can buy back more stock. Now, that's not going to pass in the Senate.
No.
And won't be signed by Trump. But it's a very, it's an aggressive bill that said not only that, that the CEO cannot make more than 150 times the lowest paid employee. 150.
That's still a heck of a lot. But Matt, this is great. What the Democrats are going to be doing in the House of Representatives, they're going to present all these bills. Probably a lot of them will be stopped in the Senate.
Right.
But it puts the Republicans in the Senate on record.
On the defensive.
That's right. And on record against things that are really good for us and for people. The people.
So back to your question.
Yeah. What was my question?
What were the
the issues, right?
The issues.
Yeah.
So Democrats were running on health care.
Yes.
And the fact that the Republicans have tried to kill off the Affordable Care Act.
Specifically pre-existing conditions.
Exactly.
Right.
And lying through the teeth. Oh, we'll protect it, and the Democrats want to get rid of it. It's like, well, everybody else and everybody sees that that's just a lie. So that's another big one. And then you're going to have things like the House Intelligence Committee with it's going to be is it Adam Schiff? Who's going to be the Democrat is now going to be the head of that.
Yeah,
and it's no longer Devin Nunes, who was constantly whitewashing, the Russian
and running to Trump and giving him all the information.
Like leaking information to the White House
in the middle of the night.
And then the 8 Benghazi investigation. Well, that BS is over. Now the House Intelligence Committee can actually do real investigations on the Russian election interference.
Yes, and make it be transparent and show the people what's going on.
That's right. They can look into Russian leverage over Trump, i.e., money laundering through his many, condominium sales that has been going on for close to 20 years.
That he says he loves the Russians. He loves and Saudi Arabia too.
He's done like 1,200 transactions with Russian, mobsters essentially.
Money laundering
and Saudi. All that. So that's right.
Clean house, Matt. Clean house.
And then there's like, his hush payments for, Stormy Daniels.
Yep. And
how about his tax returns?
That's right. And the emollients clause, the thing with Trump Hotel.
Well, hey, here's the thing about the tax returns. A 1924 law says the heads of the tax writing committee can request any American's returns and they can make them public. Oh, yeah, baby.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to see how poor that guy is compared to what he claims. And
billionaire, multi-billionaire.
We're going to win. You're going to be tired of winning. You're going to lose, you tangerine turd.
Whoa there.
And,
don't hold back.
But the emollients clause, like you say, what about things like the fact that Jared Kushner and Rob Porter on on his staff were doing top secret business with no security clearance?
Yes, that's. Oh my God!
How about that?
Wow, this is like Christmas comes early, Matt.
Yeah, and how about them? The White House revoking his critics' security clearances for guys like
Acosta?
Comey.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was thinking Acosta with the press.
Oh no, we'll talk about that.
Something else, yeah.
How he's tried to punish the media.
Right.
They can look into how the FBI investigation into Brett Kavanaugh was truncated and stifled.
Trump-cated.
Trump-cated.
Yeah,
that's good.
Thank you.
They can look into the immigration, separation of immigrant families.
Wow. Yes, the concentration camps for children.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much.
See who's
Christian Nielsen.
See who is still in custody.
Which there are a lot.
Yeah. Trump's lack of defense of the Affordable Care Act in this lawsuit that's been brought against the government.
Oh my gosh, this is just great.
What about DeVos?
Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education.
That's right. Well,
so-called
by
secretary.
Name.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, she weakened the student loan forgiveness program, and she repealed the gainful employment rule that outlawed programs that promised students, with debt that they would be able to repay it.
Which is what Obama did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And these are students that had debt so large that they will never get to pay it off without the kind of jobs that were promised to them. Well, she's gutted that program. So
and also she's rolling back, or actually strengthening the protections of people people who commit sexual assault on campus.
Oh, that's right.
She's increasing the protection of these people.
Right.
Instead of the victims, it's the perpetrators.
Right. Boy, she's a fine word. And then how about Ryan Zinke?
It's all in the
How about his corruption, his personal conduct and management decisions?
Any of them.
The list is long and juicy.
It is. And it's like I said, it's a big, fat Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah.
But the two things I am very much interested in, one is I read that there's a petition to Congress to try to increase or to stay in place the electric car rebates. It's now $7,500 tax incentive, a tax rebate.
Nice.
And
that should keep going.
Yeah, and like Tesla, these cars companies like Chevy, Tesla, what else? The Bolt, the Bolt,
the Leaf,
Nissan. After 200,000 units, then you start losing that rebate.
Ability to give the rebate. That's
correct.
Right,
so there's a petition to try to keep that going. Also, WEP. Now, those of us who worked in the education field, or firefighters or police who don't pay into Social Security.
WEP.
It's called WEP, which stands for Windfall Elimination Provision.
Yeah.
So that means since I worked in the private sector before I was a teacher, I paid into Social Security.
Yeah.
But being a teacher, I have my own pension, right?
Right.
Which I paid into for 25 years.
Yeah.
So I cannot collect my full Social Security. I think I'm entitled to it. Everybody else seems to as well, except for Congress. But there are two bills, one in the House, one in the Senate, to eliminate that, to let the people who paid into Social Security get their Social Security instead of a percentage of their Social Security. It's only fair.
What, you want the full thing and a pension from your double dipper, Jim?
Yeah, that's the critics. They say, yeah, you're double dipping. Well, I paid for it.
Well, but you paid for it. But so you basically get your Social Security paid out based on what you paid in.
No, I mean that's the way it should be. But no,
no. What you're saying is you paid in, but you're not getting anything.
Correct. Well, no, I'm getting a fraction, like 30%,
but not the proportionate amount that you'd be entitled
to.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess we can go along with that.
Oh, thank you. I didn't want to have to do the show outside wearing my
mask again. I don't want to do that. It's just not very clear.
Okay, so all right. Now we know where he's coming from.
Outside.
Yeah. All right. So more stuff, Jim. Here. So Matthew Whitaker, the acting attorney general.
Yeah.
Has
just appointed.
Yeah, so by Trump, and
good Lord, what
the state of Maryland has sued to block his appointment because he has not been approved by the Senate for any kind of position.
So Trump can't just appoint that.
That's right, and he did it anyway.
Yeah, of course.
And so now Maryland is suing to stop that.
Yeah.
And they're saying Trump may not, quote, bypass the Constitution and statutory requirements for appointing someone to that office.
Yes.
They want the court to give them an injunction
nail him
against
to
that.
the wall.
Yeah. And then, of course, he's got, clear conflicts of interest because he has certainly said that, he thinks Whitaker, that the Mueller, investigation is a whitewater, witch hunt, blah, blah,
Except
blah.
Today he did say that he would not interfere with the Mueller investigation. But he didn't
say that. He said,
Didn't he say
no, he basically said he would follow the regular procedure.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
All right. So, so it's interpreted that it would be hands off, but again, regular procedure could be regular procedure of what? Of who?
Yeah. I mean, he could still attempt to cut Mueller's budget and things like that.
Starve him.
Yeah,
right. That's
exactly. Right. So that'll be interesting. Hopefully the court will adopt that, or Trump will realize he's facing another embarrassing situation and
lash out.
The only problem is that who is he going to get now?
Well, it turns out that anyone who works in the Trump administration, they're tainted for life as far as their job prospects
go. Yeah, that's right. I mean,
who's going to work for them?
I mean, it's
hire them after that.
So Sarah Huckabee Sanders is looking to be gone by the end of the year.
Oh,
and they're like scraping the bottom of the barrel to get somebody to become the press secretary.
I thought they already scraped the bottom of the barrel.
Well, they did. I mean, look at her.
It's not so good.
No, it's pretty disgusting. interesting. And, there she is. Well, so you brought up Jim Acosta, the CNN
Yes.
reporter. How about this?
Yeah.
So there he is. The guy's, he's
asking hard questions.
Get up and be,
obnoxious
in the face. Good. He should.
Absolutely.
And especially with this Trump, moron, because that guy is just a congenital liar who lies every day and insults people. And if you watch the video of him,
watched it.
Trump is calling Acosta rude. And he's just like,
rude
Trump
person.
is being as rude as you could possibly be.
That's right.
And Acosta's, being civil, and he keeps, just throwing the question out there again. They send some cute little intern to try to grab the mic away from him. He just, he pretty much ignores her. She's reaching across into his space to try to grab the mic.
That's right. Rudely grabbing
He
it.
puts his hand up to stop her hand.
Right.
Well, so the White House doctors that video to make it look like he's aggressively smacking her hand away. They speed it up, and then they put that out. Well, fake news, folks, comes from the White House.
That's exactly right. And now they're claiming, oh, no, well, they speed it up in sports all the time. Well, in fact, they don't. They actually slow it down in sports.
Well, and besides, this isn't sports. This is our government.
Grind my teeth. You know what? I'm going to have to start wearing a mouth guard when I do this show. So, Matt, 63% of Americans say that when discussing politics with people they disagree with, which might be you listeners at Thanksgiving, they are finding they have less in common with the other person than they expected. 53% of Americans find discussing politics with those they disagree with stressful and frustrating. That's me.
Yeah.
Whereas 45% view the conversations as interesting and informative, which means they probably are very high.
Well, does that mean that 53% of people shouldn't talk politics with other people they disagree with?
That. It's just saying if you don't want to be stressful, maybe you should get high, and that way you won't be stressed. Right?
Buffer the impact.
Yeah, maybe so. Soft landing.
Talking about Whitaker and the Mueller investigation,
yeah, please, let's
it was
that.
Really great news to see that Jeff Flake, Republican senator from Arizona, who is retiring,
and Coombs,
and heretofore has been a right-wing jerk, has now said that he will not support the appointment of any more federal judges. Mm-hmm. Either there's like 21 who have to be approved by the Judicial Committee, and there's another 32 that are awaiting a House vote.
Heck of a lot.
So that's 53. He's saying he won't vote for any of them unless the bill that he and Coombs have put forward comes up for a House vote, and that bill is saying we want the Mueller investigation protected.
Excellent. And he's trying to get Susan Collins on board.
That's right.
As well. Now, you said that there has to come up to a House vote. Is that correct?
He's saying no. A vote on the floor of the Senate.
Of the Senate. Is the House involved in that at all?
No. So this would be a Senate vote, right?
All right?
Now, if it passes in the Senate, then the House has to pass of its version. Reconciliation.
Which means they could stop it right there.
They could, yeah. And that's true. And, on the floor vote for the judges that have already gone through the committee, Pence can – no, excuse me. It's about – so Flake could flip the vote on the committee against the Republicans, but Pence could come in because it's like, 10 to 11 Democrats to Republicans.
Yeah, so Pence is a tiebreaker, right?
Yeah. So let's see. Let me check my notes. So
it'd be 50-50.
Yeah.
Which is what he's done before. He's done that at least twice before. Pence has been the tiebreaker.
Yes. So McConnell says, had said that this vote is not necessary.
This vote is not necessary.
Yeah, no indication that there's
no indication.
But then Flake says
problem.
It is now with Whitaker being appointed.
Yeah, good.
But Pence could be the tiebreaker in the Senate. Okay,
so that's 50-50, right? So the Democrats and some of the Republicans would say no, and that would be Flake. And who else? Collins, probably, and maybe Murkowski.
Yeah.
Again, those three.
Yeah.
Possibly.
And then Flake is saying, the president now has this investigation in his sights, and we all know it.
Wow.
And he says Whitaker should recuse himself. Now, Chuck Schumer, the minority leader of the Democrats, said if Whitaker doesn't recuse, the Democrats will add legislation to must-pass spending bill in the lame duck session that will prevent the acting attorney general Whitaker from interfering with the Mueller investigation in any way.
They have to protect prosecutors.
Yeah, and so what we're seeing here, Jim, is since this midterm election, the Democrats are actually finally standing up and fighting for what needs to be fought for.
They're listening to
not
the people.
only here, but you'll see this in Florida and Georgia too. So, like in Florida. The judge has now said that there's going to be a
hand recount.
A hand recount in the Senate race.
Yeah.
And then there is still Gilliam, who's running against Scott
Walker.
No, not Walker.
DeSantis.
DeSantis.
Right.
Is still fighting to have every vote counted.
That's correct. So is Stacey Abrams. She's doing the same thing.
Exactly. And so let's see. And
so they ran it through the machines.
So, in Georgia, a U.S. District Court in Georgia made 2 rulings to count provisional ballots that had previously been rejected because the voters' names were either not in the precinct poll books due to shoddy state record keeping, and that another court ruled that they must count ballots that were rejected because the voters didn't put their date of birth on the envelope that they mailed in their ballot with.
Right? Geez, that's crazy.
So now, so Stacey Abrams is saying, no, we're going to count every vote.
Good.
She's like within, 23,000 votes of a forced recount.
It still is possible.
It's
Plus,
still possible.
There's the military vote that hasn't come in yet, the absentee ballots that Trump says,
right.
Let's forget it. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is possibility that she could pull it out. And if not, Matt,
right.
she's coming awfully close, which is a remarkable thing in Georgia.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and she's saying this isn't just about her election. This is about, people's voting rights.
Absolutely.
And, God bless her for that.
Well, they've been doing incredible things. Like the signatures don't match because they're comparing it to a signature that you did it electronically at the DMV.
On a digital signature pad, which
That's right.
looks,
never works.
No,
I don't recognize my own signature.
No, it looks like, totally spastic. I mean,
right. Whoa, that's right.
Well, I mean, it's just ridiculous to claim that. And then they have people that have no expertise in matching signatures. So
no, they're not graphologists. So why don't they just say, hey, sign this piece of blank paper and we'll compare it to your signature on the ballot, and if it matches, then you're in.
There you go. Or,
That's what I do.
Yeah. I mean, the third court ruling said that you can't certify the election until they count all these absentee ballots that have been previously rejected.
Yes, excellent.
So, I mean, the courts, again, are, tending to stand up and do the right thing.
Rule of law, baby.
In Florida, the Democrats have filed 4 suits, forcing, and this is where the manual recount in the Senate race has been ordered.
Good.
And that's they're asking the judge to invalidate a 2000 law that requires signatures on provisional ballots match those on file. And the judge there is saying that requirement of matching signatures is actually potentially an unconstitutional violation of people's rights to have their vote counted. Because, I mean, whose signature remains the same through their life? It changes over time. They say young people who are much more digitally oriented aren't signing. They haven't even formed a steady signature has stopped changing.
Well, not all schools are teaching cursive anymore. So one kid signed it by making block letters.
Yeah.
Other kids sign it by putting an emoji.
Yeah.
It's like back to the X.
Yeah. Well, and while all this is happening, in the meantime, like Georgia, Kemp's lead keeps shrinking, And, he just stepped down from Secretary of State last week because under threat of a lawsuit for conflict of interest.
Unbelievable.
So, and he's done everything to stifle the vote there. And that's what Abrams is saying is that this is where there's been, targeted suppression.
Yes, that's right. And this is one of the things where you show up at your polling place, the same place you've been doing it for years, and they say, oh, no, you've moved. Or the polling place has moved 5 miles out of the city.
So it's really nice to see that. And then you've got some fresh blood, like you've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York. She's
29 years old. Yes, the youngest one in the Senate.
Firebrand, and
it's fabulous.
It's great. So
did I say Senate? Is she Senate or House?
House.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So there was a demonstration in Nancy Pelosi's D.C. office, and she joined the demonstrators.
She was great. Yes.
Yeah. This is the Sunrise Movement activists who are pushing what they call a Green New Deal,
which you can find it online, and it's wonderful. They're chanting and singing, and it's good.
Oh yeah, and she jumped right in, saying, we have to do this. It's like they're saying step up or step aside, and she's saying the way things have been done in the past has not been getting results. We have to try new methods.
Yep.
So it's kind of up in your face to Pelosi, who is facing a challenge to regaining the leadership
But
role.
To Nancy Pelosi's credit, when Senator Ortez did this, thank you, Ocasio-Cortez did this, Pelosi said, we will look into it. We will actually start legislation to do this.
That's good. Now, on the other hand, she she is a corporate Democrat, and she's been in the leadership a long time.
Oh,
and
Matt,
the Sunrise
yeah,
leadership says, they say the Democratic leadership, quote, has no intention of fighting for a real climate plan in the new Congress.
Isn't that interesting?
They're going to keep their feet to the fire.
Good. I hope so.
And the fact that Ocasio-Cortez showed up and joined the demonstrators, is really great. I mean, that was a righteous thing to do.
Now, I guess the positive about Nancy Pelosi is that she knows all the levers of power, and she is a survivor. She knows how to get things done if she wants to.
And she's a huge money raiser, but that's a double-edged sword.
Absolutely, it is.
You raise big money from wealthy people,
and then you're indebted to.
You are, and that's why they've become much more corporate in the last 25 years and much less effective
for the people.
So
there's a battle going on about who's going to be the leader, and apparently they only need 17 votes against Nancy Pelosi. They claim that they have those, if not more.
Yeah, certain a group of Democrats have said.
See what happens.
Yeah. Now, some Democrats ran, in more centrist races, and distanced themselves from Pelosi because Pelosi has been the target of all the Republican attacks. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Now, we have our issues with her, but the Republicans attack her for all the wrong reasons.
That's right.
Because they're attacking her because they see she raises money and she's effective in
and she knows
maneuvering.
And maneuvering.
But we'll see who are the people that come out who don't support her for the speakership.
Yeah, be very
but
curious to see.
who would be the one that gets elected instead?
Don't know.
Now, there's a whole new crop of people. And,
they're saying Steny Hoyer, who's
he's way too old. He's part of
in Maryland,
boy.
right? And he's basically the same as Pelosi, but a male version.
Remember during the primaries in Colorado, he approached a Democrat and said, "Drop out," and the guy's going, "You're saying the Democratic leadership thinks they know better than my constituents."
There we go.
Hoyer's going, "Yeah." So no, we don't want Steny Hoyer. We want new blood in there.
Thank you.
We want,
exactly.
And there's plenty, and when you've got over 200 Congress people, there's plenty of good people.
And a lot of women for the first time, a majority of women coming in. So I think they have some good ideas.
Yeah, that's right. So
wow.
Well,
okay.
Now statewide, Jim.
Yeah. Okay.
Things have been great. I mean, again, the big blue wave. So, California has now flipped 5 of the red congressional seats.
That's so exciting.
And there's another one likely to come up.
Yeah.
I mean, these 3 of them in Orange County, 2 of them in the Central Valley.
Unheard of.
This is just kicking butt, right?
Yes, kicking red Bahootie.
Yeah.
Devin Nunes is still in, unfortunately. But he might be the only one. They said there's actually articles in the newspaper saying that this is the demise of the Republican Party in California.
Yeah, good riddance to bad rubbish, right? Yeah, one of the ones...
Only good rubbish we want.
Yeah, that's right. Good recycling.
Yeah, there we go.
Katie Porter was a Democrat who beat Mimi Walters, and Mimi Walters, and this is in the Central Valley, I think, or one of those, maybe it was Orange County, but she was saying that, she ran on a totally progressive, platform, healthcare, et cetera.
Excellent.
And she pointed out that Mimi Walters voted with Trump 98% of the time.
Wow. And probably one of the things was to take away health care.
Absolutely.
Especially pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, and voted for the billionaires, tax giveaway, all that stuff. So, Mimi Walters got booted out the door, and that's good news.
That's really good news.
Yeah. So,
wow, good thing. So, Matt, just a little change of subject. Do you know any vegetarians?
I do.
Well, they report a lower self-respect. Did you know that? And they derive less pleasure from life than omnivores. A new study
really?
says. Yeah, they said the primary problem is. This is from researcher Dr. John Neslek. Is that vegetarians may be excluded from social events or made to feel odd or different. Well, not in California.
Yeah, we need to support our vegetarian friends.
Yes, we do.
Don't listen to this, Ray Cooper. We're with you all the way, buddy.
Ray Cooper?
He's my buddy, one of my vegetarian friends.
All right, well, just don't let your teeth fall out. You might need to bite into some meat at some point when the Armageddon comes, or eat your shoes, or whatever.
I don't think anybody should be listening to this.
No, I don't think so. But back to elections, Matt, did you know that in Nevada, the voters elected the brothel owner Dennis Hoff to the state assembly, and he died before
he was dead.
He was dead, right? Yeah. He was a pimp. They called him a pimp.
He was a right-wing reactionary anyway.
Yeah, not so good.
Hey, Jim, Maine is the first state that used ranked choice voting.
Lobster. What is ranked choice voting?
So that is where you don't just put a check next to a box. You say, here's my first, second, and third choices for this particular office.
Kind of like that.
If your first choice doesn't get enough votes to either get in the runoff or win the election, those votes are reallocated to your second choice.
I like that.
And
Sounds
if that
good.
one doesn't get enough, they're reallocated to your third choice. And so what that does is it's a much more fair process where instead of 50% plus one vote, winner takes all, it's a much more cumulative. And so
you're going to win no matter what.
In this particular case, a Democrat unseated a long-term Republican.
Like that.
Yeah.
So don't you hate it when you have a choice like, do you either get pie or cake?
I take both.
Well, that's the nice thing about the ranked choice. You get chocolate cake, coconut cake, or apple pie. You're going to win no matter what, right?
That's right.
And they're all vegetarian. How about that?
It's a win-win-win.
I know.
Yeah. May not be vegan if they use eggs, though.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Maine is the first one. That's
yeah.
unusual.
So I mean, and of course, San Francisco's had it for a number of years. It's worked well there.
They call it the crazy
cities.
What the detractors call it the zoo, but it seems like it's working well, right?
Yeah. No, actually, people that have adopted cities that have adopted it have seen it go very well.
Just a little bit difficult to understand at first, but once you do, the way you described it as chocolate, vanilla, and apple pie, it's great. You're going to win no matter what.
You're going to get your just dessert.
At least some desserts.
That's right. That's right. Okay, what else do we have? So let's see.
Well, here's one. There's a Washington state, not too far away, Matt, just a couple of states away. A lawmaker has circulated a memo calling for the U.S. to become a Christian theocracy in which non-believers are killed. Republican Representative Matt Shea's memo, Biblical Basis for War, envisions a Christian army seizing territory and killing all males in areas that refuse to obey biblical law. How about that?
Now, wait, is this he wants this to happen in America or outside our borders?
Well, starting in Washington State, I think that the whole thing, the whole U.S.
This is going to be really popular.
Well, he blamed the counter-state for revealing his plans, but the local sheriff sent the memo to the FBI. So he won't be long for this world as far as politics go.
Hey, really good riddance again.
Yeah, biblical
hey, Jim,
law.
talking about the smoky skies out here.
Oh, man, Matt.
I did want to recount some interesting information.
Really awful out there.
Jim, come back inside.
I got my mask off now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
let's hear it.
there's a guy, Dr. Chad Hansen. He's director and chief ecologist of Earth Island Institute's
Heard about that thing.
John Muir Project.
Yeah, good.
And
what's he say?
He's the author of a report called The Ecological Importance of Mixed Severity Fires. And he recently spoke at Forest Unlimited Summer Dinner. Forest Unlimited is a West County organization.
West Sonoma County.
Yeah,
okay.
that fights to protect our forests, right?
Excellent.
So this guy had some real interesting information.
Like what?
You keep hearing, these wildfires, we need to thin the forest.
Yeah, logging. Get the trees out of there.
Cut down those dead ones.
Take them all out.
All right, listen to this.
All right.
First, most of the homes that have been burned in these fires in communities at risk from wildland fire are not in forests.
No way.
They're in grasslands, chaparral, and oak woodlands, right?
Okay.
Second, the science is clear that the only effective way to protect homes from wildland fire is to help homeowners make their homes more fire safe.
How do they do that?
Well, they use fire-resistant roofing, rain gutter guards because leaves accumulate in the gutters,
sure,
and sparks land in there.
Right, that's right, yeah.
And then ember-proof exterior vents, because what happens if you have an exterior vent that goes into your crawl space, the air gets sucked in there and the embers
come into your house. That's horrible. I never thought about that.
Yeah, and then to make a 100-foot defensible space around your home.
I like the defensible space. Get off my lawn.
That's right. No embers allowed.
That's right.
When this is done, well over 95% of homes will survive wildland fires, even in high fire weather.
Really? Right? What we're having right now, which is hot and, cold in this case, but dry,
yeah. And windy. And he goes on, he says, moreover, a defensible space is about removing lower limbs on large trees and removing most small trees, shrubs, and grasses within that 100 feet.
So in other words, when the fire comes, it won't catch the limbs because they're not there. It'll just go up the trunk and not high enough to catch up the other limbs.
It won't be fed by shrubs and grasses underneath,
So it'll be a quick fire, a hot fire, and that's it.
It's not about removing large old trees.
No.
So,
good.
And he's making the note that legislators continue to ignore real protection and focus on enriching the logging industry.
I have a feeling they're ignorant.
Well, I think they're greedy because there's more. So Third, it's highly misleading for the logging industry and its political allies to say our forests are unnaturally dense. We currently have slightly more small trees, but fewer medium and large trees, which science has shown to be more fire resistant.
Right, that's right.
Than we had historically.
Right.
And overall, our forests have less biomass now, not more. Fourth, forests with more dead trees do not burn more intensely.
Okay.
This is a myth which has been debunked by scientists over and over.
Science again. Who trusts that?
Yeah, well, scientists have found that forest density is a poor predictor of fire intensity, which is driven overwhelmingly by weather and climate.
Gee whiz, climate change.
Yeah,
there we go.
Weather, including the wind and drying.
Sure,
heat, right? Fifth, the claim that increased logging somehow leads to lower fire intensity or rate of spread is pure logging industry misinformation.
Bullpucky. This is all good stuff, man.
Isn't
It's kind of revolutionary.
Yeah, I mean, this is information that, I just saw today for the first time. I mean, so last year there were all the fires extensively covered in the Press Democrat,
right.
ad nauseum.
Yeah.
And very little real tangible scientific information like this until today. I saw an article in there that was quoting Hansen.
In our local paper, the Press Democrat.
Yeah. So
excellent.
Hansen said, they recently published the largest analysis ever, 3 decades of fire data, and found unequivocally that reduced environmental protections and increased logging results in higher, not lower, fire intensity.
Wow.
Right? And finally, the claims of the logging industry and its political allies that the 2018 fires are a result of lack of logging does not pass the laugh test. The forest, including federal forest in the Big 3 2018 fires, have been extensively subjected to clear cutting, intensive mechanical thinning logging, and post-fire logging. And many of the areas where the fire swept through fastest had relatively few trees as a result, and mostly were dominated by shrubs, grasses, and old logging /debris.
Very combustible.
Yeah, there you go. So I mean, and this is Forest Unlimited is a really great outfit.
Is there a way to contact listeners? Might want to contact them or maybe read that too. The Forest Communique, I think it's called.
This is the Forest Communique, the voice of Forest Unlimited.
Forest Unlimited.
I can give you a P.O. box. Let's see. Oh, here we go.
Oh, good. A website or a phone or anything like that?
Yeah, let's see.
Might as well help them out.
Let's see. I don't see the website right on here, but it's a P.O. Box 506 in Forestville.
Okay. So Forest Unlimited. Forests Unlimited.
506, P.O. Box 506, Forestville 95436.
Yeah, good.
And
good.
My good friend Rick Coates is the executive director. He's been fighting to protect our old growth forests. And one of the things that I'm really proud of them about is that the dogwood timber harvest plan is, the name of a plan to harvest old growth woods in the mouth of the Gualala River, which of course is our northern border with Mendocino County.
Right.
And they have stymied this a couple times, and CAL FIRE, the Division of Forestry, has been the handmaiden to the logging industry forever.
Because they want it. They don't want to fight those fires, I guess.
They support these the Gualala Redwoods Timber LLC, their timber harvest plan, by saying, cumulative impact, floodplain, doesn't matter. Old growth, it'll grow back. And so they've gone to court several times and stopped this.
Forest Unlimited.
And with some other people too. Good. And have stopped it. And once again, the court said, you have not done your due diligence, Gualala Redwoods, and, CAL FIRE, you have just given it a rubber stamp, and you guys need to go back and do it right.
Again, the courts come through, man.
They did. And so Gualala Redwoods comes back. They made a couple of, minor, minuscule changes, and CAL FIRE rubber stamped it again. And the court said, no, you've got to do it right.
Sounds like what the same strategy that Dutra's doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous how CAL FIRE, our tax money, is being used to support, this kind of BS.
That is ridiculous. You know what I can't understand is why PG&E, our local utility, when they're rebuilding, doesn't put the wires underground.
Well, it's expense.
Yes, I know that. But look at what they're now claiming that they won't be able to afford the lawsuits from all the fires, because they say that this latest fire up here was done from a sparking wires or a transformer.
In fact, in this case, CAL FIRE does do investigations, and they said 13 of the 17 major fires last year were due to PG&E negligence and poor maintenance.
Even better.
And they're saying in last year, they're saying that they're facing $15 billion worth of liability. And they're saying they may be facing another $15 billion in the current
with
fires.
The Paradise, the other Camp Fire.
Camp Fire.
Yeah, another theory I had, or thought I had, was why not have communities with their own power generating source and power storage?
Well,
so like
and that's
solar, wind, battery packs.
Distributed power is a much better idea. And this is why solar and wind.
Small neighborhoods.
Yeah, it is absolutely a good idea.
Yeah, no power lines, except, just to the local houses.
Now, you remember when there was the whole energy deregulation debacle, Enron and all that.
Okay.
PG&E created a parent company and made the utility a subsidiary, and the subsidiary ended up having to declare bankruptcy, foisting off a bunch of charges and fees on the ratepayers,
of
right?
Course, yeah.
So, and then last year, you remember from the fires, the state legislature passed a law that said that they would have a stress test that if they face liability, they would go and look at PG&E's books and say,
what
okay,
they do with the banks.
Yeah, you can pay out this much in penalties, but if it will put you out of business to pay more than that, you can then borrow money to pay off those fines and put it on the ratepayers to pay back.
Unbelievable.
All right, now PG&E has subsequently. Now that law kicks in 2019, so
next year.
So this year's fires, the Camp Fire, is not covered by that. Now PG&E, in the meantime, has gone back to the legislature and say what's written into the state constitution, which is the what is it? It's not reverse condemnation. It's the thing that says that even if a fire was caused by the utility, even if it wasn't negligent, then it is like inverse condemnation, and therefore they're liable. And that means that, they've caused a problem and they need to pay. Well, they're trying to get that changed in the Constitution. It's going to be tough. It's going to take, the vote of the legislature, I think 2/3, and then a vote of the public. But now, in the meantime, while they're facing another potential $15 billion in liability from this fire, there is a real risk that they could go bankrupt.
Yeah.
And guess what? Again, my good friend Rick Coates from Forest Unlimited, he's saying,
you
know what? Let them go bankrupt. Take it over by the state.
That would be great.
Make it far more equitable. Because I can tell you that PG&E are masters at manipulating the books. They are masters at that. I know that from when I worked in the solar industry. Now, there's a whole section that supports green energy, and that part has been...
Like Sonoma Clean Power?
Well, that's a different entity. But in PG&E, the divisions that work with the solar contractors and wind contractors is very progressive, and they've done a really good job of having a very high percentage of their green energy portfolio. Now, beyond what is minimally required. That's good. On the other hand, the parent company is still completely focused on returning, payouts to the stockholders and making lots of money. And they have so many divisions and so many lawyers so many interfaces with the public and commercial, et cetera, that they can just, whip out numbers that meet their needs and present them to the Public Utilities Commission.
Seem convincing.
Yeah, and just get their way 9 out of 10 times.
Well, because they're kind of a monopoly. So what are you going to say?
Well,
no?
Yeah, they are a monopoly with a guaranteed rate of return for the right of being a monopoly that's under control of the utility commission.
Well, but under control in quotes, right?
Yeah, quote unquote.
Because they basically get whatever they want.
They do, and the utility commission, has tightened up since that whole Burlingame gas explosion.
Yeah, right. That's right.
And a change of the leadership on the utility.
But
PUC.
that's good. So it's starting to turn, but maybe not quick enough, and maybe they will go bankrupt. I remember Herb Cain, the columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle, called them pigs, greed, and extortion, PG&E.
That's right.
To write your checks out to pigs, greed, and extortion.
That was a long time ago, too.
And it's still true.
Yeah, it's true, And they're a very powerful political entity, so,
yes,
it's going to be interesting to see. But, think about that. If they went bankrupt and the state took them over, well, the state does have deeper pockets. However, you would hope that the state would then, I mean, you could eliminate oversight by the PUC because it would be a public entity.
Right.
Maybe there'd still have to be some form of oversight.
Maybe our legislature or something like that.
But you could,
or citizens would be great.
You could potentially have a much more cost-effective, efficient system because you're not having to pay out that guaranteed 15% profit. And that profit, of course, is predicated on how much PG&E spends on expenses and amortization and all the expenses, and that's where they can, they're making plenty of bucks on this, even though they're quote unquote limited to 15% profit. I mean, they know how to tote up every expense, and they can hire lawyers and they can institute programs, and those are all expenses that they can say, well, we spent more money, we get our 15% profit on that. So. Maybe
if it was a good thing. Change sometimes is very good.
Yeah, if it was state run, you'd eliminate that 15% overhead.
That's
true. And if you didn't have all that, feather bedding, all that, fluffing up and stuff, plumping the costs, you might really save a lot more than that.
Okay, down with PG&E.
Yeah. Pigs, greed, and what?
Extortion.
Yeah,
that's right. Wow. Hey, Matt, let's get to more local stuff, shall we?
Okay, yeah, let's talk.
Yeah. All right. So we had some election results. I was down on assignment down south, and I understand there was a pretty good turnout, and also pretty good results.
Well, there is, just a side note, there are still 81,000 votes to be counted.
That's kind of a lot.
Well, now, it was something like 74% were vote by mail.
That's what I did. I did a vote by mail. So, Matt, tell me something. 81,000. Is there a time limit on when they have to be counted?
I think they have to. 30 days. I think they have to do.
So December the 6th.
Yeah, maybe it's November 30th. I forget.
Okay.
And I think they'll be able to. Now we are at the new. Registrar of Voters is going to be overseeing the implementation of a new vote counting system, because now, what the way it works is they have to get every absentee voter vote by mail ballot in, and by the Friday after the election,
right? And
then they have to verify the signatures, address, validity.
That takes time,
and then they count all of the votes at once. They can't do
piecemeal.
They can't count them in batches.
Yeah,
they can't give updates as they go along.
That sounds kind of archaic.
It is archaic,
yeah.
And that's one of the things that this current registrar ran on and won on was
to change that.
To oversee the implementation of a new vote counting system.
Yeah, that would be good.
That'd be good because, so like you look at Petaluma, we're down here south end of the county, you can deliver your ballots, and on election night, you go and vote at the polling station or you drop off your ballot. Those all have to be collected. You have to wait till the end of the, 8 p.m. So they don't get to Santa Rosa till 10 p.m. And then they start opening and counting,
So it takes a while. We don't get immediate results. Yeah. Even close to immediate results.
Exactly. Yeah. So there could be a change. And this is when we had Delinda Fisher on last week, and she won the 3rd spot on the city council.
Yeah, congratulations.
But she's
Delinda
only
Fisher.
like 97 votes ahead of Dennis Posek.
So it's still up in the air, perhaps.
81,000, probably 10% of those are Petalumans.
Yeah.
So 8,000 votes, that things could still change.
That could change.
But now they do say that both locally and nationally that the later votes tend to trend more Democratic.
I heard that too. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So I don't expect the calculus on who's winning to change much on the city council. I certainly don't think it's going to change in the mayor's race.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah, I was really impressed with that. Teresa Barrett won. I'm very happy that she did.
Like 1,500 votes
1,500.
Right?
And one of the reasons why, I don't know whether you got those robocalls, but I got 2 of them. One for Delinda, anti-Delinda, and the other one, anti-Teresa. And I recorded them off of our answering machine, and I tried to analyze it through fancy software to see who actually sponsored it. And there was actually on Neighborhood Next Door, there was a discussion about that, and no one seemed to know. The Raucous Rooster got closest. I agree with who he said, a name that I had no idea who it was, and it's still, I'm not going to bet my bottom dollar on being able to identify it. So it was obscure.
And apparently that's illegal in that, not only they gave a person's name, but you couldn't track him down.
No, you can't.
And Teresa Barrett told me that technically, by law, you have to have a live person introduce the robocall.
Isn't that interesting?
I hadn't heard that before.
I hadn't either. But anyway, Teresa Barrett is quoted as saying, the robocalls really did backfire. I really want to pursue that and not let it drop. I don't want that in local politics. It's just ugly. And I know on the reaction on Nextdoor, people were pissed because when they got those, I was angry about that because they didn't say the positive thing about anybody. They just were tearing down Delinda Fisher and Teresa Barrett. Don't vote for them. Big money interest. And Mike Harris actually claims he said that it was affected him.
Counter-affected?
Yeah, it affected him. It ruined his relationship or his whole voting thing. And
I don't know if it ruined his whole voting thing. I don't know.
Well, the results. Well, anyway, people were mad enough that it certainly helped push Teresa over the edge, perhaps. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, when I got that robocall, I emailed Delinda. I said, well, you must, good work. You're making somebody scared.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
So that was pretty good. I like what she did. They said a coalition of big oil companies spent about $62,300 mostly on mailers to support Harris. It may have had the opposite effect, Harris said.
Well, and then also Powell, who the third guy running for mayor, and also Rob Conklin, and they were hilarious pieces because, a beautiful little picture, close up of a little sprig of plant coming out of the ground, and then it's paid for by the gas, oil, jobs, and community values
this is the last living thing on earth.
Yeah, it's like spray it with Roundup. And I had to laugh. I thought, somebody made a big mistake because it almost looked like it was like a liberal prank, to
like from The Onion.
Yeah, or like we're gonna it's like mass murderers and fascists for Mike Harris.
Right. That's right. A picture of Blacktop.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, isn't this beautiful? Vote for Mike Harris.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't know whoever the graphic person or the political consultant on that.
They weren't from here.
I guess not, because tell people in Petaluma, we're the Gas and Oil Coalition. Oh yeah, and we want that gas station at Safeway.
In fact, we want one in every corner.
Yeah, exactly.
A car in every garage, a gas station on every corner.
And make gas cheap again.
Well, I was also impressed with Delinda Fisher, what she said. She wants to increase local engagement by establishing citizen-led committees to tackle issues like the Rainier Crosstown Connector. And when we had her here, that's what she talked about.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, so
that's good.
So locally, it looked really good. It's going to be
Pretty
interesting.
happy.
There's going to be plenty to do on the city council.
Wow! And
once again, folks, just so you don't get too excited, there's very limited. 70% of the budget goes to employee salaries and wages, and then pensions. And pensions continue to eat away at what's left of the 30% of money that
That's
can
a
be
problem.
used for. But a couple good notes. So Prop 6 went down, so there will be gas tax money
$1 million coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And
now, is that annually? $1 million?
Yeah, I believe so.
Not daily. Okay.
And then Proposition M for the parks.
Yes, for the parks.
So we're going to get about $700,000 a year for that.
That's right. Pave our grass.
Don't listen to him.
Mow the grass.
Mow the grass.
All right, time to put the mask on, Matt. I think it's about time to go, don't you?
Time for you. Go stand outside.
I'll go breathe.
Hey, listen, folks, this has been Two Mooks and a Mic.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
I think now we have some potential music that we can fade out on. But,
okay.
Mook, I'm not your father.
Oh, my God, what are you?
Let's go.
That's it, folks.
Right,
happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hopefully when we're back next week, we'll all have more air to breathe. And
belly's full.
Until then, thanks for tuning in to Two Mooks.
Whoa.
Whoa.
That's a Freudian thing.
There we go.
You're showing your petticoats.
Take care, Petaluma.
Bye.